Galactic Station Amara 7 was the crown jewel of the Helios Accord, a floating city teeming with representatives from over 200 species. Its halls pulsed with activity as beings of every conceivable shape and size exchanged goods, ideas, and diplomatic pleasantries. Above it all, bioluminescent holograms displayed constant reminders: unity in diversity, order in chaos. Somewhere in the West Wing, Ben Calder felt none of the unity and most of the chaos. The human mechanic muttered under his breath as he adjusted a filtration panel with a wrench that seemed determined to slip from his hands. Seriously, he grumbled, tightening a final bolt. Who designs a system that vents straight into the wiring? Do they want this thing to short out? A Lorexi supervisor, whose translucent jellyfish-like body hovered nearby, blinked its cluster of bioluminescent eyes. Human Calder, your approach to repairs is inefficient. Ben sighed. It's Ben, and yeah, maybe. But it works, doesn't it? He gave the panel a sharp smack, and the humming system sprang to life. The Lorexi pulsed a faint pink, an expression Ben had learned to interpret as begrudging approval. It remains perplexing that your species relies on physical effort over automation. Welcome to humanity, Ben said with a smirk. Sometimes a good smack fixes more than fancy tools. Before the Lorexi could respond, the station-wide alert system blared. Emergency in West Wing Sector 14. Evacuate immediately. What the Ben started, but his question was cut short as a thunderous boom rocked the corridor. The world exploded into chaos. Ben was thrown against the wall as a shockwave tore through the sector. Shards of metal and plastic flew like shrapnel, and a greenish mist hissed from the ruptured pipes. Alarms screamed, and emergency lights bathed the corridor in a pulsing red glow. Pain lanced through Ben's side, sharp and searing. He forced himself to look down and saw blood spreading across his work jumpsuit. His vision blurred, but he could still see the Lorexi. The creature hovered motionless, its bioluminescent body flickering like a dying light bulb. No, Ben muttered, dragging himself toward the supervisor. Every inch felt like a mile, and his body screamed in protest. Before he could reach the Lorexi, the mist grew thicker, clinging to his lungs like a living thing. His strength gave out, and he collapsed against the floor. "This isn't how I go," Ben whispered, his voice barely audible over the alarms. But his body betrayed him, and darkness claimed his vision. When Ben regained consciousness, the sterile glow of the station's medical bay greeted him. His body ached in ways he didn't know were possible, and a strange warmth radiated from his abdomen. He tried to sit up but winced as pain shot through his side. "Do not move," a voice said. Ben turned his head slowly. A tall, gangly alien stood nearby, inspecting a floating orb that emitted soft clicks. The creature's skin shimmered like liquid mercury, and its 4 large eyes blinked in an unsettling sequence. "You are coherent," the alien said, tilting its head. "Surprising." Ben groaned. "Thanks, I guess. Where's the Lorexi supervisor?" "Deceased," the alien said bluntly. Ben's heart sank, but before he could react, the alien continued. "Your injuries are severe. Internal bleeding, fractured ribs, lacerated organs. Probability of recovery less than 5%. Ben blinked. 5%? That's not great. "It is generous," the alien replied. "Your biology is inefficient, primitive. Recovery is unlikely without significant intervention." "Gee, thanks for the pep talk," Doc Ben muttered, trying to shift into a more comfortable position. A second alien entered the room, this one shorter and covered in segmented, chitinous plates. Its voice was softer, almost melodic. "Patient 345H, rest assured, we have applied every available resource. However, our medical database finds your physiology resistant to nanorepair and incompatible with regenerative serums. Your chances of survival remain minimal." Ben let out a weak laugh. "So what you're saying is I'm a lost cause?" The chitinous alien hesitated. "We do not use such terminology." "Sounds like you just did," Ben shot back, coughing weakly. The first alien stepped closer, its metallic voice as neutral as ever. "You misunderstand. It is not personal. It is practical. Resources must be allocated to patients with higher probabilities of survival. Ben stared at the ceiling, a cocktail of frustration and disbelief swirling in his chest. Well, I hate to disappoint you guys, but humans don't exactly give up easily. An admirable sentiment, the chitinous alien said, though its tone carried no real conviction. As the two medics left the room, Ben let out a long, shaky breath. He was alone now, with nothing but the hum of medical equipment and the weight of his own thoughts. He thought about Earth, about his sister and her stupid collection of bad sci-fi movies, about his mom's terrible lasagna, which she insisted on making for every holiday. This wasn't how he was supposed to go. Not like this, in some sterile room billions of miles from home. Well, he muttered to himself, wincing as he shifted his weight, if they're not going to save me, I guess I'll have to do it myself. With that, Ben forced himself to sit up, the faint spark of human stubbornness flickering to life. Whatever it took, he wasn't giving up. Not yet. Ben woke to the faint sound of clicking and murmuring. His eyes fluttered open, and he groggily scanned the room. The medical bay felt colder than before, and the light seemed harsher, more sterile. Standing a few feet away, the two alien medics, Tien, the metallic-skinned one, and Varro, the chitinous one, were locked in a heated discussion. Check again, Tien said, their voice unusually sharp. This data cannot be correct. Varro clicked nervously, holding a crystalline tablet. I have checked 3 times. The readings are consistent. This rate of recovery is. They hesitated, their mandibles twitching. It is not possible. Ben groaned and shifted slightly, drawing the medic's attention. Tien immediately floated their scanner over him, the device buzzing softly. You are conscious, Tien said. Morning, sunshine, Ben rasped, his voice hoarse. Did I miss breakfast? Tien ignored his sarcasm, their 4 eyes narrowing. Explain your current state. Ben blinked. What? Your recovery, Tien said, their tone tinged with something Ben hadn't heard before, unease. By all calculations, you should be deceased, yet your injuries are mending. Ben frowned. Mending? Like, I'm healing. Varro stepped forward, showing him the crystalline tablet. The display showed a holographic projection of Ben's body, with glowing overlays highlighting areas of recent damage. Bones that had been fractured the day before now appeared whole. His internal organs, once lacerated, showed signs of regeneration. What in the? Ben trailed off, staring at the data. I didn't do that. Did you? Tien straightened, their metallic voice clipped. No intervention we applied could account for this rate of recovery. Your biology is responding autonomously. Ben let out a dry laugh. Well, that's good, right? Guess I'll live to complain another day. This is not a cause for levity, Tien said, their gaze sharp. Your healing defies all known principles of biology. It is as if your cells are adapting. Varro clicked in agreement. Human biology is chaotic, but this level of redundancy and repair exceeds even the most robust models in our database. Your species. They paused, clearly uncomfortable with the words. It is highly irregular. Ben raised an eyebrow. Irregular? You mean special? Special implies intent, Tien said. This appears to be random. Ben smirked, wincing as his side twinged. Yeah, humans are pretty random. Keeps life interesting. As the day wore on, Ben's condition continued to improve at an inexplicable rate. By midday, he could sit up without assistance, and by evening, he was shuffling around the room, his movements slow but steady. Tien and Varro observed him obsessively, their earlier detachment replaced with a mix of fascination and trepidation. Explain your sensations, Tien said, hovering nearby with their scanner. Ben shrugged, carefully stretching his arms, a little stiff, but way better than yesterday. Feels like. I don't know. Like my body's just patching itself up. Patching itself, Tien repeated, clearly baffled. Yeah, Ben said, glancing at the glowing bandages still wrapped around his torso, like when you fix a hole in a tire. Except I'm the tire. Tyen's metallic skin rippled faintly, a sign of agitation. Faintly, a sign of agitation. Human metaphors are unhelpful. Sorry, Doc. Guess I'm just a walking mystery. By the time night fell, word of Ben's recovery had spread beyond the medical bay. Outside the observation windows, alien scientists and medics crowded the corridor, whispering and clicking in their respective languages. Ben glanced at the growing crowd and sighed. Great. I'm the zoo exhibit of the week. Varro, who had been reviewing yet another set of scans, clicked sympathetically. Your recovery is unprecedented. Naturally, others are curious. Curious, huh? Ben muttered. Feels more like they're waiting for me to sprout tentacles. Unlikely, Varro said, not picking up on the joke. Ben slumped back onto the medical bed, rubbing his temples. Okay, so bottom line, what's happening to me? Am I going to keep healing like this forever? Or is there some cosmic price tag I don't know about? Tyen hesitated, their gaze flicking to Varro before responding. We do not yet understand the mechanisms behind your recovery. However, we detected residual traces of an unknown compound in your system. Ben frowned. Compound? Like medicine? No, Varro said, holding up a small vial containing a faintly glowing green mist. This substance was present in the corridor where you were injured. We suspect it may have interacted with your biology in unforeseen ways. Ben's stomach sank as he stared at the vial. You mean the green stuff that was hissing out of the pipes? I breathed that in. Varro clicked nervously. Then it is possible the compound has altered your physiology. Its effects remain unpredictable. Ben swallowed hard. Unpredictable. Awesome. So I'm basically a walking science experiment now. An experiment with unprecedented results, Tyen said, their tone almost reverent. Ben shot them a look. Gee, thanks. That makes me feel so much better. As Ben lay awake that night, his mind churned with questions. What was in the green mist? Was it responsible for his miraculous recovery, or was it something deeper, something uniquely human? Whatever the answer, one thing was clear: his survival wasn't just a fluke. It was the start of something far stranger. And if he wanted to get to the bottom of it, he'd have to do what humans did best: improvise, adapt, and keep going. Ben's sleep was restless, haunted by fragmented dreams of the explosion. In the haze of his subconscious, the green mist writhed like a living thing, wrapping around him, sinking into his skin. Each time he tried to fight it, the mist whispered words he couldn't understand, yet they left him unsettled. When he awoke, Tyen and Varro were already in the room, their postures stiff with unease. Morning, Doc, Ben croaked, sitting up. What's today's fun fact about me? Still baffling your fancy machines. Tyen's metallic skin rippled faintly. Human Ben, your recovery continues at an accelerated rate. However, Varro interjected, holding up a crystalline tablet, we have found something troubling in your latest scans. Ben rubbed his temples. Of course you have. Hit me with it. Varro projected the scans into the air. They displayed a glowing network of green veins crisscrossing through Ben's body, faint but unmistakable. What the hell is that? Ben asked, staring. The compound you inhaled has integrated into your system, Tyen explained. It is no longer a foreign entity. It is symbiotic. Symbiotic, Ben repeated. You're saying this stuff's part of me now? Precisely, Varro said. It is not merely aiding your recovery. It is rewriting your biology at a cellular level, enhancing processes that are already unique to your species. Ben leaned back, running a hand through his hair. So I'm some kind of freak now? Great, just what I needed. This is not a judgment, Tyen said, though their tone carried a faint edge. Your resilience has become a subject of great interest among station leadership. Security has requested access to our findings. Ben stiffened. Why? What do they care about my resilience? Varro hesitated, their mandibles clicking softly. There is speculation that the explosion and the release of the compound were deliberate acts. If your survival was an intended outcome, it raises troubling questions about motive. Later that day, Ben sat in the observation lounge with Tyen and Varro, poring over security footage of the explosion. The holographic images flickered and shifted as Resnick, the station's head of security, manipulated the playback. The Resnick said, freezing the feed. Ben squinted at the image. A shadowy figure moved through the corridor moments before the blast, carrying a cylindrical device. The figure was humanoid, though their features were obscured by a hooded cloak. "That's not suspicious at all," Ben muttered. Resnick tilted their head. "Do you recognize this individual?" Ben shook his head. "Nope, but they've got 2 legs, 2 arms, and a lousy fashion sense. Could be human." Resnick narrowed their yellow eyes. "If this saboteur is human, it complicates the investigation. You remain the only officially registered human aboard this station." Ben crossed his arms. "You think I had something to do with this? Really? I nearly died in that blast." "Your survival is precisely why you are under scrutiny," Resnick said coolly. "No other being could have endured such injuries. The possibility of premeditation cannot be dismissed." Ben shot a look at Tyen and Varro. "You two aren't buying this, are you?" Tyen's skin shimmered faintly. "While your recovery is extraordinary, there is no evidence to suggest your involvement," agreed Varro said. "It is more likely that you were an unwitting test subject." Resnick straightened, their gaze unyielding. "Then we must find the Saboteur to clear your name. This individual accessed restricted zones with technology that bypassed station security. Their intentions were calculated. Fueled by equal parts anger and determination, Ben joined Tyen and Varro in the investigation. Together they traced the Saboteur's movements through the station's surveillance grid. The figure navigated the corridors with precision, avoiding populated areas and bypassing locked doors with the device that emitted faint pulses of green light. Eventually, the footage showed them entering the maintenance zone near the reactor core. "That's not a good place for a stroll," Ben said, his stomach twisting. Varro clicked nervously. If they tampered with the reactor, the consequences could be catastrophic. Ben pushed himself to his feet. "Then we'd better stop them." The reactor chamber was eerily silent, its usual hum drowned out by the faint hiss of vented coolant. Ben, Tyen, and Varro crept into the room, their footsteps muffled by the dense insulation. At the far end of the chamber, the Saboteur was crouched over a control panel, attaching a strange device to the reactor's interface. The device pulsed with green energy the same hue as the mist that had changed Ben's body. "Hey," Ben shouted, startling the figure. The Saboteur spun around, revealing a human face scarred, weathered, and framed by wild eyes. "You shouldn't be here," the man growled. "Funny," Ben said, stepping closer. "I was about to say the same thing. Who are you, and why'd you try to kill me?" The man sneered. "Kill you? Hardly. You're the reason this worked." Ben's stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" The man gestured to the reactor and the pulsing device. "You're proof that humanity can adapt, evolve, transcend. That green mist, it's our future. And you're the prototype." Ben clenched his fists. "You mean your guinea pig?" "Semantics," the man said with a shrug. "Do you have any idea what this tech could do for us? For Earth, we could compete with the galaxy's best, finally take our place at the top." At the top of what Ben snapped. "A pile of bodies? You nearly killed everyone in that corridor." The man's expression hardened. Sacrifices are necessary for progress. But before Ben could respond, Tyen stepped forward, their scanner glowing faintly. "Your device is destabilizing the reactor's containment field. Deactivate it immediately." The man smirked. "You think I came here without a plan?" He pressed a button on his wrist, and the device emitted a high-pitched whine. Alarms blared as the reactor core's energy output spiked dangerously. "You've doomed us all," Varro shouted. "Not if I can help it," Ben said, rushing toward the control panel. The Saboteur moved to block him, but Varro tackled the man with a chitinous roar. The two grappled, their struggle echoing through the chamber. "Tyen, I need time," Ben shouted, his hands flying over the reactor's interface. "Time is not a luxury we have," Tyen said, scanning the rapidly deteriorating containment field. Ben gritted his teeth, his mechanics instincts kicking in. He bypassed safety protocols, rerouted power, and activated the emergency override. Sparks flew, and the reactor emitted a deafening hum. Come on, Ben muttered. With seconds to spare, the reactor's containment field stabilized. The alarms fell silent, leaving only the heavy breathing of everyone in the room. The Saboteur lay pinned beneath Varro, his defiance replaced with grim resignation. Nice work, big guy, Ben said, panting. Varro clicked triumphantly. Humans are not the only resilient species. Ben managed a faint grin. Yeah, but we're pretty good at it. The reactor room remained eerily quiet after the alarms died down, save for the occasional crackle of cooling metal. Ben leaned against the console, catching his breath while Tyen scanned the Saboteur. The pinned man struggled against Varro's grip, his face twisted in a mix of anger and despair. You don't understand, he spat. This is bigger than all of us. Humanity needs this edge. Ben glared at him, his pulse still racing. An edge? You mean weaponizing people like me? Playing God with tech you clearly don't understand? No thanks. The Saboteur's eyes narrowed. You call it dangerous. I call it evolution. You think this galaxy respects us? No. They see us as fragile, backward. But with this, he nodded toward the now deactivated green device. We become unstoppable. Tyen's shimmering skin rippled as they interrupted. Your device nearly destroyed the reactor and could have obliterated the station. Explain your intended outcome. Intended outcome, Ben snorted. He wanted to turn me into a walking science project. The Saboteur sneered. You're already one, kid. You should be thanking me. Ben's fists clenched, but before he could respond, Resnick entered the reactor chamber, flanked by armed security officers. Their segmented exoskeleton glinted under the emergency lights. What is the situation? Resnick demanded, their deep voice echoing. Tyen gestured to the subdued Saboteur. This human is responsible for the explosion and the release of the nanobiological compound. He endangered the reactor and used Ben Calder as a test subject. Resnick's yellow eyes bore into the Saboteur. You will answer for your actions before the station tribunal. The man laughed bitterly. Tribunal? Go ahead, lock me up. You can't stop what's coming. This is only the beginning. Hours later, Ben found himself back in the medical bay, his adrenaline finally wearing off. His muscles ached, and the strange green veins in his scan still haunted him. Tyen and Varro hovered nearby, uncharacteristically quiet. So Ben began, breaking the silence. Am I going to keep glowing in the dark, or is this, whatever's happening to me, done? Tyen glanced at Varro before answering. The compound has stabilized within your system. It is no longer active, but its changes are permanent. Ben rubbed his temples. Permanent. Great. So what does that mean? Am I like invincible now? Unlikely, Varro said. While your regenerative capabilities are enhanced, they're not infinite. Continued trauma could overwhelm your system. Ben exhaled sharply. Well, that's a relief. I'd hate to think I'd have to jump off buildings for fun. Your humor is misplaced, Tyen said, their tone sharper than usual. What has occurred is not a gift. It is a profound violation of your autonomy and biological integrity. Ben blinked, caught off guard by their words. Whoa, yeah, I'm not thrilled about it either, but you make it sound like I'm doomed. Tyen tilted their head. Not doomed, but you are irrevocably changed. Your biology now operates outside of its natural parameters. You are neither fully human nor entirely other. The weight of their words settled on Ben's shoulders like a lead blanket. He had known, deep down, that he wouldn't come out of this unscathed, but hearing it said so bluntly made it real. So Ben said after a long pause, what now? The following day, Ben stood before Resnick and the station's leadership council, a semicircle of alien officials representing the Helios Accord's diverse species. The Saboteur's trial was brief and damning, the evidence overwhelming. The man remained defiant to the end, his final words ringing out as he was escorted away. You can lock me up, but you can't stop progress. Humanity's future is coming whether you like it or not. As the doors closed behind him, the council turned their attention to Ben. Human Ben Calder, a crystalline being named Ralith, began, their voice resonating like chimes. You are both victim and anomaly in this matter. Your resilience has sparked curiosity and concern throughout the Accord. Ben shifted uncomfortably. Yeah, I've been hearing that a lot lately. Ralith's crystalline form shimmered faintly. Your recovery is extraordinary, but it raises ethical questions. Should this technology be developed further? Should it be shared? Or should it be destroyed? Destroyed, Ben said immediately. The council members exchanged glances. Think about it, Ben continued. If this gets out, it won't stop with people like me getting caught in explosions. It'll become a weapon, a way to control people, a way to, he paused, his voice catching, a way to ruin lives. Resnick's segmented eyes locked onto him. You speak from a position of experience, yet your perspective is limited. Maybe Ben admitted, but I know what it's like to be treated like a tool. To have someone mess with you without asking. Nobody deserves that. Not humans, not aliens, nobody. The room fell silent, the weight of his words settling over the council. In the end, the council voted to destroy the remaining nanobiological compound and halt any research into its development. The Saboteur's device was dismantled, its data sealed under the highest security protocols. Ben watched as the green mist contained in its crystalline vials was incinerated in a plasma furnace. He felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. Whatever had happened to him, he wouldn't wish it on anyone else. Tyann and Varro stood beside him, their presence oddly reassuring. You have ensured this technology will not harm others, Tyann said. That is commendable. Ben smirked faintly. Yeah, well, I guess that makes me a hero or something. Varro clicked softly. Your actions reflect the adaptability and resilience of your species. Perhaps there is more to humanity than we understood. Thanks, Crabby Ben said, patting Varro's armored shoulder. I'll take that as a compliment. As the station settled back into its routine, Ben returned to his work as a mechanic. Life wasn't normal, he wasn't sure it ever would be, but it was his, and that was enough. He'd survived the impossible, adapted to the unthinkable, and proved that humans, for all their flaws, were tougher than anyone gave them credit for. For Ben Calder, that was just another day in the galaxy.